Looking for magic cards? At flipsidegaming.com you can now use the promo code LVD to get a 10% discount on orders over $10 while supporting the channel at the same time. Hello and welcome to another Magic Arena gameplay video. Today we're taking a look at an Esper control deck featuring Dovin's Acuity as its main card draw engine, a 3-mana enchantment that when it enters the battlefield it gains us 2 life and draws us a card, so excellent against any of the aggressive decks, especially mono red. And then whenever we cast an instant spell during our main phase, we get to return Acuity back to our hand, so we get to replay it over and over again, much like Disinformation Campaign in Guilds of Ravnica. So our entire deck is built to take full advantage of Dovin's Acuity, since we have a ton of instants that we're happy to play during our own turn, so we can pick up the Acuity once again. So let's take a look at our entire deck list. At 1 mana we've got 4 copies of Opt to scry 1 and draw a card at instant speed, so pairs very well with Acuity, since if we play Acuity on 3, on turn 4 we can Opt and then pick up Acuity once again and replay it. Then we also have a 1-off copy of Fungal Infection, giving a creature -1/-1 until end of turn, and also making a 1/1 Sapperling token, so if we time it correctly during the opponent's turn we can even take out 2 toughness creatures, shines against cards like Adanto Vanguard, and can cheaply answer a lot of the early creatures in the mono-red deck, which is always nice. Then at 2 mana we've got the full 4 copies of Revitalize, gaining us 3 life and drawing a card at instant speed, so also pairs well with Acuity, gaining us a ton of life against the aggressive burn decks, which is where this card shines. Then we've got a 1-off copy of Radical Idea, drawing us a card, also as Jumpstart, so later in the game we can maybe get rid of an excess land, or in some matchups where some of our removal spells are less useful, we can discard those as well, and another way to pick up Acuity once again. And then also the full 4 copies of Moment of Craving. We're not messing around, we want to beat the red decks, and with all the life gain we're packing we can easily do so, and for Moment of Craving is an excellent way to do that. Could also split the difference with Cast Down if we want to answer larger creatures, but that's what our next card is for, Mortify, 3 mana instant, destroying a creature or enchantment, so this is a removal spell to take care of big stuff, and a lot of the more expensive creatures in Standard nowadays are legendary, so Cast Down can't kill those, for example Lara Dawnbringers, Niv Mizzets, whereas Mortify can still tag them. And being able to destroy enchantments is also a very big deal, since we can take out Search for Ascantas in the control mirrors, maybe take out a Wilderness Reclamation or an Ixalan's Binding that's exiling one of our Dovin's Acuities, has a lot of versatility. Then of course we've got our 4 copies of Dovin's Acuity, always nice if you can have one in your opening hand, and in the late game gets even better in multiples, since we can pick up multiple copies at once by just casting a single instant in our main phase. And then we also have a 1-off copy of Crowd the Carnarium as one of our many sweeper effects, giving all creatures -2/-2 and exiling any creature that might have ended up in the graveyard this turn. Then at 4 mana we've got 3 copies of Kaya's Wrath to complement our Crowd the Carnarium as one of our sweeper effects. We've got 3 copies of Vraska's Contempt that can exile any creature or planeswalker and also gain us 2 life, and of course another instant to go with Acuity. And then we also have 3 copies of Mastermind's Acquisition, and this is also one of the key pieces of the deck, letting us search up any card in our main deck or sideboard, and often we are searching up a card in the sideboard, so let me quickly go through all the sideboard cards here. We've got a wide variety of selections. We've got Demystify, destroying an enchantment for 1 mana. We've got Sorcerer's Spyglass that can shut down any planeswalkers or other activated abilities. We've got 2 copies of Clear the Mind in the control matchups, where we can prevent decking by shuffling our graveyard back into our deck, and we've got 2 of them in case we want to loop them so we can truly prevent decking. Then we've got an additional copy of Crowd the Carnarium if we need a cheap sweeper effect. We've got an Unmoored Ego that can get rid of problematic cards like the Fairy or Carnage Tyrant. We've got an Ixalan's Binding, which can be great in certain situations. Cleansing Nova as an additional sweeper effect that can also destroy all artifacts and enchantments. We've got a Lara Dawnbringer, which shines against the red decks. We've got a Teferi, which can be decent in some of the more mid-rangey matchups. We've got an Ethereal Absolution, which shines against decks with a lot of 1 toughness creatures, and can also be used as graveyard hate, getting rid of any problematic cards from the opponent's graveyard. We've got an Immortal Sun, as well as one in the main deck that we'll touch on in a second. Since we don't have any planeswalkers in our main deck, this can shut down opposing planeswalkers all by itself, as well as of course drawing us extra cards and making all our cards cheaper, so also plays very nicely alongside Dovin's Acuity, since now it only costs 2 mana to play, which makes it much easier to play multiple copies in the same turn. We've got a Nezahal for the control matchups. Sanguine Sacrament if we need to gain even more life against the red decks, and a Mass Manipulation, which can also be fun if the opponent has a bunch of Planeswalkers in play about to ultimate, or just a lot of creatures we want to steal. But we can definitely get pretty creative with some of the cards in our sideboard, and I'll leave it up to you to maybe find some more hidden gems that you can fit in the sideboard to search up with Mastermind's Acquisition. And then to round out our main deck, we've got a one-off copy of Ephemerary Conjecture as a nice value engine. On the first chapter when we play it, we get to return any instant from our graveyard to our hand, and of course there's a pretty wide selection of instants to return. On the second chapter we get to return a sorcery from our graveyard to our hand, so either one of our sweeper effects or Mastermind's Acquisition, and then on the third chapter any instant or sorcery cast gets doubled for that turn. So of course if we can get back a Mastermind's Acquisition on the second chapter, and then hold it for a turn, and then double it up on the third chapter, we can get 2 cards out of our main deck or sideboard, which can often close out the game on the spot. And do keep in mind that if you do select, for example, get a card from your sideboard with Mastermind's Acquisition, the copy will also force you to choose a card out of the sideboard, so you can't go one in the main deck and one in the sideboard. If you double it with Miraric Conjecture, has to be the same mode. And then finally 1 copy of the Immortal Sun in the main deck, as well as in the sideboard for those problematic Planeswalkers. A great tool against Planeswalkers like Vivian Reed and Teferi. If we can resolve this in the Esper control matchup, then they often don't have an answer to resolve the Immortal Sun, and they have a very hard time to win the game from there. So yeah, that's the deck. Great against any of the aggressive decks with all the many removal spells and life gain we have. Not so great against the more controlling decks since we're lacking counter spells, since we mostly want to play during our own main phase, which makes counter spells worse. But you could also try fitting in some counter spells if you want to make the control matchups better. But for now, let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, what about this one? Well, not a great hand, but don't think we can mulligan. Got an opt to look for Acuity. And hopefully Mortify is useful. Alright, there's Acuity. Sometimes you want to keep the opt until after you play the enchantment, but this might be one of those spots where we just play it anyway. Just to look for maybe a Moment of Craving, Revitalize, more life gain. Although it is close, since if we hold it, we can turn 3 Acuity and then turn 4 opt and then replay Acuity, but we probably want to be answering the board to some extent, since we don't want to keep taking damage from the creatures. So I think I will opt to look for some cheap removal here. And not the matchup for Immortal Sun. Alright, let's play Acuity. Gain some life, draw some cards. Next turn we'll probably have to mortify one of these creatures here. Acquisition could look for maybe Cry with the Carnarium to sweep away 2 creatures at once, although taking a turn off to cast it is pretty painful. Alright, they're going for the risk factor. I'll take it. Alright, I think we just mortify and then play a tap land for now. Yeah, we could acquisition for Lyra as well. It's a line we have available, but when they have 4 cards in hand, it's less effective since they can easily just double burn Lyra. It's much more effective if they're down to like 1 or 2 cards. Alright, we were hoping to draw something like a Revitalize here. Alright, let's see what they've got. Another risk factor. I'll take it. And we're hoping they play a target for this Mortify. Alright, just all burn all the time. So I guess we Masterminds for Revitalize here. Alright. Lava Runner, nice target for a Moment of Craving. And yep, opponent sees the writing on the wall. Once we get to this stage in the game, it's usually game over. Alright, hand looks reasonable. Always looking for at least one Dovin's Acuity to have in our early turns. Mastermind's Acquisition, every now and then we'll search up Acuity. We'll play the Shrine in case we want to Infection plus play Fountain next turn. And against the white deck, Fungal Infection's not a bad one. Don't really mind the drawback of Tithe-Taker all that much, since we're mostly playing at sorcery speed, but we might want to Infection it anyway, since there's not many better targets than Tithe-Taker. Sometimes they'll play Adanto Vanguard, which is of course a dream with Infection, but it seems like a fine target for now. Play the Fountain. And then next turn we might just Revitalize. Having Chaos Wrath in this matchup is also a very big deal. So we'll happily chum block with a token just to save a bit of life. Could Revitalize main phase in case we find an opt. But they might play differently if we keep up 2 mana. So I think we'll just play the Stabbed. We could play a Checkland to represent having a 3 mana counterspell, which they might also respect a bit more. But I don't think that's quite worth it here. So I will chump. Opponent might suspect Chaos Wrath incoming here, but I'm gonna wipe the board anyway, even if they don't commit anything else. Alright, Adanto Vanguard would have been a nice target for our Fungal Infection. Well, talk about perfect top decks. Answers the Vanguard nicely. Alright, so now we gotta start thinking about what to potentially get with the Mastermind's Acquisition. It honestly could just be Dovin's Acuity. We could get an Immortal Sun, although they can answer that with Conclave Tribunal. I guess the same can be said for Dovin's Acuity. I think getting Dovin's Acuity might just be better since we get to pick it up with Moment of Craving again, so we don't expose it to a Conclave Tribunal. I think that's acceptable. Yeah, Ethereal Absolution is also a very good one, but I think I just want to minimize the impact of a potential Conclave Tribunal. If they had a bunch of 1/1 creatures in play, Absolution would be more defensible, since it kind of has an immediate impact of wiping all the 1 toughness creatures, but in this case it doesn't seem as necessary. So we'll play Acuity and then Moment of Craving, one of the 2 tokens. Opt is also an excellent draw here, since that'll let us pick up Acuity once again. So I'm not gonna play it unless we desperately need to dig for an answer here. And we just want to keep putting Acuity back into our hand every turn. Alright, Lara Dawnbringer, so this is a good opportunity for Chaos Wrath. We could Acuity and Chaos Wrath as well. We expose it to Conclave Tribunal for a turn, but maybe that's not a disaster here. So I guess we'll go for it. Another Acquisition, so yeah, now I feel a lot better about exposing the Acuity. Can Acquisition for all sorts of things now. Alright, so they're more of an Angel build than a pure white weenie deck, which makes sense. So they're more like a mid-rangey red-white Angel deck. So I don't hate Acquisition just for a Fungal Infection, and then we get to pick up Acuity again, replay it. It's not bad. We could opt first, pick up Acuity, and go from there, but I'm not too worried about winning the game quite yet. If we can just keep answering the opponent's stuff over and over again, they'll eventually run out of threats, and then we can take our time to win the game. Let's get another... oh, I guess we only have the 1 Fungal Infection. Alright, change of plan. Let's get Mirror Conjecture then. And then we'll just opt, pick up Acuity, and then replay it. We could have gotten Moment of Craving, Contempt seems fine. But since Moment of Craving was kind of inefficient this turn in terms of mana, so I think we just get Conjecture as kind of our late game payoff card, can pick up an instant speed removal spell like Fungal Infection, and then it can also get back a Mastermind's Acquisition, and then on the third chapter of Conjecture we can Acquisition twice, which is usually game over. And at 17 life we're still pretty comfortable. Alright, so Contempt on the Phoenix seems like a good place to start. Alternatively, we could Mortify the Phoenix, Kaya's Wrath, opponent saves the Vanguard, and then we still have Contempt for the Vanguard. We could Conjecture for the Fungal Infection to kill the Vanguard. Got a few ways to do this. I don't hate going for Mortify, Phoenix, and then Kaya's Wrath. It's a pretty efficient turn. Yeah, sure. Could also Kaya's Wrath first, doesn't really matter here. Alright. So, opponent's at 16, saves the Dante Vanguard. But we've got a lot of tools to work with here, so it's gonna take something special for the opponent to come back into this. Another Lyra Dawnbringer. Not quite good enough here. Alright, so how do we want to do this? We could Conjecture, get a Fungal Infection for Vanguard, and then we still have enough mana for Mortify on Lyra. Or we could sneak in an Acuity and pick it back up after we cast a Fungal Infection, take a hit from Lyra. Don't know if I want to take a hit from Lyra though. Seems unnecessary. So let's go with this line. And then next turn we get to pick up Mastermind's Acquisition, and then we'll wait a turn to cast it until we get the third chapter of Conjecture. Yeah, our opponent's potentially playing Heroic Reinforcements, although the red is most likely just for Rekindling Phoenix and Aurelia. No real reason to main phase a Fungal Infection, I don't think, but might as well. I'm totally fine playing this deck at sorcery speed. Shall I? Well, opponent's gotta be running out of angels at some point. So this is pretty straightforward Acuity. And then I guess we'll Mortify instead of Contempt, since that answers Phoenix a bit better. So I guess we then even have the mana to Acuity first. And yeah, this might prompt a concession. Yep, there we go. Sweet. This hand's not great, but I think I'm still gonna keep. Does our deck have anything against Mill? Yeah, against Mill we can Acquisition for Clear the Mind to shuffle our graveyard back. Or we can just Mortify their enchantments. I guess we'll keep a Moment of Craving here. There's a decent argument for just playing a tapped Watery Grave as well. Opponent on Golgari, not doing much at the moment. What 4-drop are they likely to play? Not much that we need to Mortify. So I think I'll just play a tap land there. So I guess we'll Moment in response to the Explore, in case they pick up 2+1/+1 counters. Did I consider Mission Briefing to pick up any instance from the graveyard? I prefer Mirari Conjecture to do a similar thing as Mission Briefing. Mirari Conjecture is a little bit more powerful, even though it's a bit clunkier and slower. Alright, let's probably just Mastermind's Acquisition for a Immortal Sun, I think. Opponent relies on Vivian and potential Vraskas pretty heavily, so hopefully Immortal Sun just shuts those down. Maybe not necessary given the 2 contempts we have in hand, but we can just save those for the creatures then. There's Vivian. Opponent's playing straight Golgari, so I don't think they'll have Hostage Taker to steal Immortal Sun. So we could contempt Vivian, but it feels like a waste when we're about to Immortal Sun. Of course, our opponent could have like a Thrashing Brontodon or Reclamation Sage, in which case we might want to contempt Vivian anyway. But I think I'm gonna save it and let them get 1 more activation out of it. We've got Kaya's Wrath to answer Carnage Tyrants.
No one knows the wilds like I do.
And we'll happily contempt anything threatening. Let's see how much they commit. Alright, more Planeswalkers. We are in a pickle if they do have an answer to Mortal Sun, since we're not answering these Planeswalkers. But hopefully it pays off. And now we have to decide between Contempt and Mortify. I think I'll just Mortify the Branchwalker. So if they do have an answer to Mortal Sun, we still have the Contempts to answer the Planeswalkers at least. Yeah, they could also have like a one-off Assassin's Trophy in their deck somewhere. We'll see. Yep, there's a trophy. Yeah, that's painful. So now we regret not contempting the Planeswalker sooner.
You can't stop nature.
Well, we will be able to get rid of Vivian before she ultimates at least. Trophy is not a card you see in heavy numbers, it's usually like a one-off. But I'm not surprised to see it. Alright, so Conjecture can eventually get back our Mastermind's Acquisition, which can then get another Immortal Sun, since we do have 1 in the main and 1 in the side. I took 1 out of the sideboard, so we still have 1 in the main deck. But for now we just need to contempt this Vivian, since I don't think we can beat the ultimate.
I'll be back, just like before.
And then we'll Radical Idea end of turn. Could main phase it in case we pick up a tap land that we can play here, but should have maybe tapped our mana a bit better to keep up double blue to represent Absorb. They could easily have a second Vivian. Alright. Jade Lights, we can Kaya's Wrath, although Midnight Reaper makes that a bit more complicated. Alright, they're putting it in the graveyard anyway. Alright. Ooh, another Immortal Sun. If we Immortal Sun and they have an answer to it, we're just dead, since they can ultimate Vraska and kill us with the creatures. We could just contempt the Vraska here, take a beating from the creatures, and then next turn Kaya's Wrath. The high reward play here is just playing Immortal Sun and them not having an answer, but of course the risk is that we're just dead. Don't think I want to take that risk, since I think we can win a game where we just take a beating here. So I guess we'll opt first here. See what else we find. Chapel, that's fine I guess. We don't mind more lands. And then we'll contempt the Planeswalker right now. And then next turn we can see what we want to do. Probably need to Kaya's Wrath. Why no Omniscience in the sideboard? Yeah, it could be reasonable. It's pretty nice with Dovin's Acuity if you can cast it for free, but with Immortal Sun, Acuity only costs 2 mana, so it does a good Omniscience impression. Fine Broker. At least it can get back Assassin's Trophy. Gets back Midnight Reaper. So this Kaya's Wrath is not looking amazing. We could of course Conjecture for something. Could Conjecture for a Mortify, kill the Reaper, but then we're taking 12 damage on board, which I don't know if we want to take. This one's close. Yeah, probably just want to opt first to see if we find a clean answer to the Midnight Reaper. Fungal Infection doesn't quite cut it. Alright, just a land. Alright, I guess we just let them draw a million. Alright, opponent can draw all the cards they want. Then hopefully they spend a turn playing Vivian, we Immortal Sun to shut it down. And hopefully they don't have an answer to it. Alright, opponent's just unloading. Alright, so could Immortal Sun, we could Conjecture, get back an instant like Vraska's Contempt. Next turn get back either Acquisition or Kaya's Wrath. The downside of Conjecture is if our opponent goes Vivian minus, so we might be better off going Immortal Sun. I guess we can opt first, since that doesn't change. Another opt. I guess we'll keep it. Could also find an Acquisition, which could find another Cry of the Carnarium. Yeah, well, it's just Immortal Sun then. And I think we keep the land in hand now to jumpstart this radical idea. Alright, so hopefully they don't have an answer to Immortal Sun. Perfect. So we're definitely doing it. Let's clean up this mess. Conjecture. And I guess we get back Contempt. Can definitely use a bit of life gain here. And then next turn get back Acquisition, and then wait a turn before we cast it so we can Acquisition twice. Alright, now we might have to get a Kaya's Wrath instead here to get rid of Carnage Tyrant. Our opponent also has Memorial, so they can get the Carnage Tyrant back. Acuity does change things since we get to pad our life total, plus we get to Contempt the Llanowar Elves. So I think we get the Acquisition and then we should be able to gain enough life that Carnage Tyrant doesn't kill us, and then we can Acquisition twice, which should give us enough material to work with. Opponent could easily be holding a Cast Down that they can use to kill their own Llanowar Elves, so we don't gain the life from Contempt, but the 2 life from Acuity should still be enough to keep us afloat. Alright, well, we could Acquisition for another Kaya's Wrath here. I guess that's fine. Make them use a Memorial to get Carnage Tyrant back, and then we can Acquisition twice next turn. If they have Finality, then they still don't kill us, since the Carnage Tyrant also gets -4/-4. Could have also considered getting a Cleansing Nova out of the sideboard instead of a Kaya's Wrath out of the deck here. Could have been better. So our opponent's going to use Memorial to get back Carnage Tyrant, presumably. Or they could get back Fine Broker to get back Carnage Tyrant. No, they just go for the Carnage Tyrant right away. Midnight Reaper. Alright, so now we get to do a lot of fun stuff. So let's start with Acquisition. And sadly, we can't go one main deck, one sideboard, since whatever we copy, copies whichever one we select here. But I think we get some sideboard cards here. So what do we want to get? We could get a Teferi, we could get Unmoored Ego naming Carnage Tyrant after we get rid of it. Absolution after we get rid of it, could also exile it and give us a win condition. I guess I don't hate Cleansing Nova Absolution. And then this turn we can bridge the gap with Contempt on Midnight Reaper. Pick that back up. And then play a 5 mana Absolution to be mana efficient. Opponent has another Memorial, so good thing we picked up this Absolution. Chupacabra. Alright. Still plenty of cards left, so not afraid of decking. So let's wipe the board here. And that's gonna prompt the concession. Alright, well, that was a close game. Faced Planeswalkers about to ultimate, but we managed to crawl our way back into the game. And then the second Immortal Sun was good enough to stay in play and eventually carry us to victory. Alright, sweet. Hand looks reasonable against any creature deck. It's going to be pretty weak against a more controlling deck, although Mortify is not a dead card against control. Can still kill Oskanta. Duress, probably going after the Contempt would be my guess. Nope, goes for the Mortify. Alright, opponent doesn't like Mortify, so probably means they want to protect some Search for Oskanta. Although Chupacabra's unusual, so maybe they're less controlling than we think. Ooh, I see. That explains it. Thief of Sanity. Well, wait, now we definitely want to revitalize to find an answer right away. Alright, looks like Thief of Sanity will hit us at least once. But then hopefully we can Contempt it. Opponent could be playing stuff like Dive Down or counter spells to protect it. Or they might just use another hand disruption spell to take away the Contempt. And let's see what the Thief gets, or doesn't get rather. Alright, well, either it was 3 lands or 1 spell and 2 lands. There's a lot of cards that don't do much that the opponent can find, like our various removal spells. Alright, I guess we can Moment of Craving instead of Contempt, save the Contempt for later, even though Contempt is more mana efficient now. Opponent could have stuff like Doom Whispers that we want to Contempt that we can't Moment of Craving. So let's just main phase this. Pick up Acuity. Don't have to pick it up if we want to play around a discard spell, but with a Conjecture in hand as well, there's another good target that they might take as well, so it's not as bad for them to take the Dovin's Acuity. We'll keep Revitalize in hand, no reason to main phase that. We might also save it until after we play Dovin's Acuity, so we can pick it back up. Alright, opponent found Revitalize with the Thief of Sanity, so that's not too bad. And our opponent's gonna scoop it up right away, so they can beat our controlling deck. Sweet, so maybe they just picked up a few too many removal spells that didn't do anything. Alright, let's do at least one more game here. Alright, hand looks reasonable enough. Alright, another mono red deck. Alright, Revitalize was a timely top deck. So we can go turn 2 Revitalize, turn 3 either Cry or Mortify depending on the board. And hope to pick up a Dovin's Acuity as soon as possible. Alright, looks like Cry of the Carnarium is picking up in value here. I think it's still worth it to Revitalize, even though we could play a tapped Godless Shrine instead. There could definitely be a game where if we don't Revitalize, we never get to cast it. So might as well gain the 3 life while we can. Alright. Opponent's going to try and level up their G2 Lava Runners here. Light up the stage, finding 2 more burn spells. And Cry of the Carnarium is looking mighty fine. Opponent also missing their 3rd land drop, so they might be unable to cast both exiled spells. And alright, well, sometimes a turn 3 Cry of the Carnarium and Revitalize is good enough for the red deck. I'll take it. Alright, sweet, so that was cute control for you. Pretty fun control deck if you're looking to beat some creature decks. Pretty decent against a red deck, thanks to all the life gain. So yeah, if you're looking for a non-Teferi control deck, although I guess there's one Teferi in the sideboard, then cute control might be the deck for you. But for now, I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day. I also want to thank all my patrons for being part of the channel, and you can become a patron yourself today and decide the topic of future videos over at patreon.com/LegenVD.